UFC 310 is on our doorsteps, and today I'll be bringing you guys my full card predictions and breakdown for every single fight on this card. And there are honestly a lot of great fights on here. There are some great fights on the prelims, and there are a couple super stacked fights on the main card. I'm not going to sit here and tell you guys that it's the most stacked fight card in the world, but it's certainly not too bad. So I'm going to cover it for you guys. Let's get into it. First up, we have Kennedy Nzechukwu moving up from light heavyweight after his huge win over Chris Barnett, where he literally looked identical to Cyril Gane out there. And now he's going to be taking on Lucas Brzeski, another can in the heavyweight division. I know that Kennedy Nzechukwu was taking this fight on short notice. I know that Lucas Brzeski beat up on a slow Walter Walker, right? But I don't even care, if you want to be honest with you. I don't even care. Kennedy Nzechukwu, I hate saying that name, is going to completely mop up Lucas Brzeski. All right? He's going to be like Cyril Gane out there, bouncing around, hitting a good 1-2 down the pipe, good teep up the middle. I mean, it's going to be a nasty beatdown. He's going to knock out Lucas Brzeski in round 1 with absolute ease. Okay, I know that Lucas Brzeski's like a little bit more in shape than Chris Barnett, but I still don't think that he's going to give Kennedy Nzechukwu any problems. I know that heavyweights hit a little bit harder than light heavyweights, but every other category at heavyweight is worse than light heavyweight. Kennedy Nzechukwu, I know that he's chinny. I know that he can get slept at any time, but he is better in every single category. In every single category, he's better than Lucas Brzeski. I mean, I think that he's going to completely mop up Lucas Brzeski. Give me a first round TKO up against the fence. Shot, and then he's going to go out. All right, so give me Kennedy Nzechukwu, first round TKO. Next up, we have Chase Hooper taking on Clay Guida and UFC. UFC, man, what are we doing here? What are we doing here, UFC? Why are we feeding Clay Guida to Chase Hooper? Lightweight Chase Hooper is a completely different beast, man. And Clay Guida is old. Clay Guida is washed. Clay Guida is beat up over a long period of time of losing. He's 38 and like 40, dude. I mean, this fight's terrible. This is a terrible fight. Why is the UFC making this fight? Makes me so mad. It's like what? Like what are we even doing here? Why are we feeding Clay Guida to Chase Hooper? Chase Hooper subs Jordan Levitt. He beat up on, I forgot his name. And then he completely annihilated Vyacheslav Borshev, which I actually picked Vyacheslav Borshev to beat Chase Hooper. And Chase Hooper completely annihilated him. On the feet, he dropped him. On the ground, he subbed him. All right, Clay Guida stands no chance. Okay, Clay Guida's going to come up in there with his chin tucked. And, he's going to go chin tucked, hands up, brawling. And he's just going to slug with Chase Hooper. It's not going to work. It's absolutely not going to work. Chase Hooper's going to either... I do think that it'll go to a decision. I think that Clay Guida's really tough. I don't think that Clay Guida's going to go out. I don't think that Clay Guida's going to tap, right? And I don't think that Noodle Arms Chase Hooper is going to choke Clay Guida out unconscious. So I do think that it'll make it to a decision, but it'll be like a 30-27, maybe even a 30-26 decision, honestly. So give me Chase Hooper by a 30-26 dominant decision. Next up, we have Michael Chiesa taking on Max Griffin, and I don't care. I'm taking Michael Chiesa because Max Griffin cannot finish a fight to save his life. He won't put himself in any danger. He won't go for anything. He won't push the action. He'll stand on the outside, throw 6 to 8 strikes every single round, and just keep himself barely in there to where maybe he can get a split decision over Tim Dirty Bird Means. Okay? Michael Chiesa is going to beat him. I don't think that either of these guys are going to do much, okay? And I do think that Max Griffin is the better fighter, but Michael Chiesa actually is more likely to push a pace. Michael Chiesa is way more likely to push a pace than Max Griffin is. Michael Chiesa did choke out a sad, diminished, beaten up on Tony Ferguson. So pathetic. I don't even really count that win, but Michael Chiesa he's more likely to push the pace than Max Griffin is, and that's kind of my only reasoning. So give me Michael Chiesa by a 29-28 split decision. Next up, we got Cody Durden taking on Joshua Van. Yes, dude, I'm so excited for this fight. I am so excited for this fight. This fight's going to be genuinely an awesome fight. Classic lightweight talent on display, I like to say, because, wow, I mean, Cody Durden, if you see him in his fight against Matt Schnell is actually a good fighter. His chin's just so terrible. That's just the only thing, but Cody Durden is fast. He looked fast against Matt Schnell. He looked powerful against Matt Schnell. He was quick. He was explosive, man. I mean, Cody Durden seriously looked really, really good against Matt Schnell, and then he choked him out, and, like, right once round 2 started, he choked him out. So, I mean, just an awesome fight. Him and Matt Schnell, it was one of the best first rounds I've seen all year. It was seriously an awesome fight. And Joshua Van always puts on great fights. He just gets in the pocket. He's about 5'2". Bang, bang, bang. Right? Brick wall takedown defense. Ain't nobody's taking him down. The only person that could chin him was Charles Johnson. And I already know that Cody Durden's not chinning my boy Joshua Van. If you see my best prospects of 2024 in each division video that I made a few months ago, I said that Joshua Van was the best prospect at flyweight. Since then, he did lose to Charles Johnson, but he also came back and beat Edgar Chairez. And I do think that Joshua Van is going to show some of that skill that he showed against Edgar Chairez on Cody Durden. I think he's going to walk him down, he's going to eat up that body, he's going to take his time in the first round, and he's going to let himself get going, and I do think that he's going to sleep Cody Durden in the third round. Give me Joshua Van by a third round vicious KO. Next up, we got Chris Weidman. I hate Chris Weidman. Taking on Eric Anders. Chris Weidman sucks, dude. He's old, he's fragile. The only way he can win is when he pokes people in the eye. I think that Eric Anders is going to knock him out in the first round. Eric Anders used to be an NFL player. That's pretty cool, I guess. He hits really hard. He does. Outside of his Khalil Roundtree fight, he's looked pretty good in the UFC. This fight, I'm not excited for it. I hate Chris Weidman. It's going to be slow. It's going to be boring. It's going to be plotty. But I do think that Eric Anders is going to find the KO. So I am going to take Eric Anders by a second or third round KO. Maybe even a first round KO. I'm taking him by KO. Please, MMA gods, sleep Chris Weidman. Next up, we have Randy Brown taking on Bryan Battle, and this fight is going to be an absolute banger of a fight. Bryan Battle is the Max Holloway of the welterweight division. He has constant volume, great cardio, amazing chin, and he's tough. He is tough. But Randy Brown, ever since losing badly to Jack Della Maddalena, is on a 3-fight winning streak and had that KO over Muslim Salikov that was nasty. A slick 1-2 down the pipe just puts out Muslim Salikov. Puts him right out. Would have been the last way you would have thought someone was going to beat up on Muslim Salikov. But you know, Muslim Salikov, he's an old guy. It's like 40, right? Is Bryan Battle an old guy that'll go out to some pitter-pat 1-2 like Muslim Salikov might because he's getting up there in age? Is Bryan Battle one of those guys? No, he's not. Bryan Battle is not getting put out by some lousy pitter-pat 1-2 down the pipe. He's not. All right? Randy Brown's not going to be able to pitter-pat, patty-whap his way to a decision, in my opinion. So I am going to take... Okay, I'm actually kind of torn. I'm taking Bryan Battle. I think that Bryan Battle's going to beat him by decision. It's going to be an amazing fight. If I'm wrong... I'm wrong, you know. I'm honestly going either way on this. But I am going to take Bryan Battle by a 29-28 decision because Bryan Battle's just been on an absolute tear recently. Next up, we have Movsar Evloev taking on Aljamain Sterling, and wow, this fight's going to be real boring. When you're a number 1 contenders match and you're like almost on the early prelims, that's how you know you're a boring fighter. All right, Movsar Evloev has like 7 or 8 fights in the UFC. They've all gone to a decision. He is 7-0. To be fair, he's 18-0. He's undefeated. He's a monster. You know, he wins a lot. Aljamain Sterling, he's been on a tear at featherweight, right? Ever since Sugar Sean beat him, knocked him out flat. He's been looking really good at featherweight after his move up. He's really starting to fill out in the division. You know, he looked great against Calvin Kattar. I really think he does. I've seen people say that Calvin Kattar wasn't giving him anything, wasn't showing him anything. Calvin Kattar was scared of the takedown so much from Aljamain Sterling that he just basically gave up. And Aljamain Sterling just dominated him for 3 rounds. I do think that Aljamain Sterling should have chased a finish. He never chases a finish, it seems, recently. He's kind of changed his style a little bit more than what it used to be, and he's never really chasing a finish. He's never really chasing a KO. And I do think that's bad. I wish that he would go for it more, especially with a guy like Movsar Evloev, which even though he kind of has pipsqueak power and doesn't get finishes, he still goes for it way more than Aljamain Sterling does. And he rocked Arnold Allen. He rocked him bad. He had Arnold Allen stumbling. He had him stumbling all around the cage. You know? All around the cage. And I do think that Movsar Evloev is going to be able to beat Aljamain Sterling pretty handily, actually. I think Movsar Evloev is way better on the feet, and I don't think Aljamain Sterling is going to be able to do anything on the ground against him. So I don't think that this is going to end in a finish. If it does, that would be absolutely insane. But I am going to take Movsar Evloev by a 30-27. Pretty dominant, very, very clear decision. Next up, we have ranked Vicente Luque taking on Themba Gorimbo. What are we doing, UFC? Themba Gorimbo? Are you kidding me? That guy, he beat Pete Rodriguez and Raheem Brahimaj. And now he beat Pete Rodriguez. Pete Rodriguez fights Mike Jackson. That's what Pete Rodriguez is doing. If CM Punk was still in the UFC, they would give him Pete Rodriguez. Okay? And then he beat Raheem Brahimaj. The only guy that Raheem Brahimaj can beat is freaking Mickey Gall. That's the only guy that Raheem Brahimaj can even beat. Okay? Get out of here with this. Vicente Luque is going to smoke him. I don't even want to hear it, dude. He better smoke him. Themba Gorimbo has finesse too much. First he gets a house from The Rock, and now he gets a ranked opponent? Are you kidding me? Themba, get back to the unranked bozos that you need to fight before you can get a chance at a ranked fighter. You aren't ranked material, Themba. You're getting knocked out in round 2. Next up, rounding off the prelims, we have a real sad one. I'll admit it's a real sad one. Dominic Reyes is going to be taking on Anthony Smith. Anthony Smith, man, please retire. Please retire. Dominic Reyes is going to knock him out in round 1. He's going to sleep him so quick. Dominic Reyes, man, coming off of that amazing comeback victory against Dustin Jacoby, he's finally back. Dominic Reyes is back, and he's improved. Anthony Smith is completely falling off. Vitor Petrino handed him a guillotine win. Dominic Reyes is not just going to fall into a guillotine. Ryan Spann gave up and quit in the 3rd round. Dominic Reyes is not going to give up and quit in the 3rd round. Roman Dolidze was schooling Anthony Smith on the feet. Roman Dolidze was schooling Anthony Smith on the ground, trapping him on the ground. Anthony Smith is screwed against Dominic Reyes. He's going to knock him out in round 1. It's a sad, sad fight. I don't even want to talk about it. Give me Dominic Reyes. Moving on to the pay-per-view. Starting off this pay-per-view, we have Doo Ho Choi taking on Nate Landwehr. I don't know why this bullshit's on the pay-per-view, but dude, I'm excited for it. I love Doo Ho Choi. Doo Ho Choi's always been one of my favorites. I'm so happy that he's back. He had that amazing win over Bill Algeo, and this fight's going to be an absolute barn burner. This fight's going to be absolutely incredible. Nate Landwehr, great volume, great power, super tough, good cardio. Kind of chinny. And I think Doo Ho Choi is going to expose that. Doo Ho Choi has some really awesome power. He's super entertaining. He's always going for it. He's a lot less dumb than he was when he fought Charles Jourdain and Kyle... Forgot his name. He went to a draw with him. I forgot his name. But Doo Ho Choi, he's a great fighter. Okay, he really, really is. And I think that he's going to knock out Nate Landwehr in round 2 or maybe round 3. I think this fight's going to be absolutely great. It's going to get into deep waters. It's going to go very far into this fight. It's not going to end early. Doo Choi, it's going to get drug on. Nate Landwehr's a very, very tough fighter. But I do think that Doo Choi is eventually going to find that kill shot. So give me Doo Choi by a 3rd round KO. Next up, we got Bryce Mitchell taking on Kron Gracie. And Dana, what are we doing here? It's another one of these fights where it's like, what are we even doing here? First, you got Chase Hooper and Clay Guida. What are we doing? Themba Gorimbo taking on Vicente Luque. What are we doing? Now we got Bryce Mitchell taking on Kron Gracie on the main card. What are we doing, UFC? Kron Gracie? Are you kidding me? I just kicked my light, dude. I'm sorry, but Kron Gracie is 0-2 in the UFC and has not shown any signs of being good at all in either of those fights. When you get completely whooped up by Charles Jourdain and Cub Swanson, what makes you think you deserve Bryce Mitchell in a ranked spot after that? Bryce Mitchell's going to destroy him. I don't think he's going to finish him. I think Kron Gracie's going to be too defensive. I think he's going to be too scared. But I do think that a 30-27 Bryce Mitchell dominant decision is very likely. And I am happy that Bryce Mitchell's not taken like a Josh Emmett type of hitter in his fight back, especially after getting flatlined like that against Josh Emmett. It was a scary KO, one of the most brutal KOs I've ever seen. It was bad. But Bryce Mitchell's back, and he's better, and I think that he's going to completely smoke Kron Gracie. So, give me Bryce Mitchell by a 30-27, very, very dominant decision. Now we're moving on to the last 3 fights that make this card so great. We have Cyril Gane taking on Alexander Volkov, the number 2 and the number 3 ranked heavyweights going at it. The winner of this fight will probably get the next shot at the title against Tom Aspinall, but who really even knows? So, we got Cyril Gane taking on Alexander Volkov. These guys already fought once. Cyril Gane pieced him up for a 49-46 dominant decision in their first fight. But this one is only 3 rounds. And I do think that that's going to help Alexander Volkov. But the thing that sucks for Volkov is that these guys are basically the same fighter. Heavyweights, natural heavyweights, that are huge guys with not that much pop, not that much power, but they're super fast and super technical. And I just think that Cyril Gane's a better version of Alexander Volkov, and Alexander Volkov is a worse version of Cyril Gane. So I am going to take Cyril Gane by a 30-27 decision. Every round's going to be close. Every round's going to be competitive, but I just think that Cyril Gane's going to be able to squeak out each one just barely. Next up in the co-main event, which is everybody's favorite fight on this card, we have Shavkat Rakhmonov taking on Ian Garry. And let's just get technical with this one. Shavkat fights Neil Magny, smokes him, chokes him out, wrecks him. Ian Garry fights Neil Magny, takes him to a decision. Shavkat fights Jeff Neal, smokes him and chokes him out in one of the best fights I've ever seen. Ian Garry fights Jeff Neal, takes him to a split decision, and it's one of the most boring fights I've ever seen. Ian Garry is vegan and eats grapes for breakfast. Shavkat eats horse hearts in the mountains. I'll give you one guess who I'm picking in this fight. Give me Shavkat Rakhmonov by KO. If you want to hear more of my opinion, go check out my last video. On to the main event, we have Kaya Sakura taking on Pantoja for the UFC Flyweight Championship. And I very, very stupidly picked Kaya Sakura last time I talked about this fight. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. UFC, how can I even pick this guy? This guy's losing to Kyoji Horiguchi in Japan. You think Pantoja's going to lose to Kyoji Horiguchi? Kaya Sakura has never fought outside of Japan. Pantoja's fought everywhere he's ever had to fight before. Kaya Sakura has no fights in the UFC. Pantoja has literally fought like every single person on this flyweight roster. I gotta pick Pantoja. I really, really hope that Kaya Sakura viciously sleeps him, but I just don't think that it's going to happen. As much as I really want it to, I just can't pick it to happen. Give me Alexandre Pantoja by a third or fourth round submission. I do think this fight's going to be great. If you look at Pantoja's last few fights, honestly, Pantoja's been very unimpressive in my opinion. Scrapes by Brandon Moreno by hanging on for dear life in the fourth round. Beats Royval by camping in half guard for 3 of the 5 rounds, and then when it's on the feet, he's losing all of it. Fights Steve Erceg, and in my opinion, is the worst robbery in UFC history. I rewatched Dominic Reyes vs. John Jones. I rewatched GSP vs. Johnny Hendricks. That is the worst robbery ever. Erceg should be the champion right now. Erceg vs. Pantoja is the worst robbery ever. Okay? So I do think that Pantoja is overrated. I do think that he's been very disappointing, but I just cannot pick him to lose to a UFC debut. So, give me Alexandre Pantoja by a 48-47 decision